the Democrats aren't hiding it anymore. Check it out.
And literally the entire Democrat dais is empty. I think that's, quite frankly, a disgrace.
What should have been a hearing where both parties agreed on the importance of fighting fraud somehow turned into one-sided completely skipping it. And Nick Shirley pointed to why that may have happened.
Quite frankly, they used the Somali population to commit the fraud. Ilhan Omar should be disgraced of what she did to the Somali population.
And today, we're covering it all. So let's get right into it.
Let me just point out again for the record that I think preventing fraud in government should be completely nonpartisan. It's not a Democrat issue or a Republican issue, yet almost the entirety of the Republican dais is filled with people sitting here listening to the entire hearing, and literally the entire Democrat dais is empty. I think that's, quite frankly, a disgrace. Mr. Shirley, I'll start with you. The previous Controller General of the GAO had been in office since 2011. What were you doing in 2011?
Playing football and basketball.
And what grade were you in?
At that time, I was 9 years old. So.
9? Gotcha. Yeah. So you were 9 years old, and this person served for 15 years in government. We have this idea that maybe we double down on that process that failed for 15 years, that somehow we'd be better off, and yet you went in at your risk and exposed fraud.
Okay, in the current Congress, Democrats have made it a habit to skip hearings they aren't comfortable with. We counted at least 5 major hearings where they either sent the ranking member to read a generic opening statements before leaving or simply didn't show up at all. That includes the Biden cover-up hearing, the ICE under fire hearing, and many more. That's not even counting Trump's State of the Union address or routine meetings to confirm some of his nominees. As for the GAO Controller General, it's only fair to acknowledge that he exposed billions in fraud and waste across multiple government programs and created a high-risk list to flag problematic ones. The real issue is that many of his recommendations were ignored year after year, while the GAO rarely used the full extent of its authority to push agencies into action. So what ended up happening was the agency being reactive after taxpayer money had already been wasted, rather than preventing the abuse from the get-go.
How does it make you feel as somebody who's 25 years old to know that your generation is going to pay the bill for everything that's happened right now? We have $40 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
And yet your generation is going to pay the price.
Yeah, I think that's the sad thing is my generation's the one who's affected the most from this fraud and from the national debt. It's extremely hard for anyone my age to buy a home, even just to be able to accumulate the money to have a down payment inside your bank account. It's very, very hard. And so when you see a fraudster who literally opens up a Leering Center and they receive $1.9 million, and that was going on for years, and no one ever did anything. We had all this oversight. We had everyone knew about the fraud, but everyone was too afraid to talk about the fraud because of what would happen to them.
And what do you mean what would happen to them? Is that somehow racist to say you should not steal money from the federal government?
It's not racist, but politically it can be seen as racist. They may label you as Islamophobic.
Now, Nick isn't making this up. A New York Times article even described how Tim Walz's administration believed, quote, that forcefully tracking this issue might cause political backlash among the Somali community, which is a core voting bloc. And to that, the Democrats' tendency to treat criticism of immigrant communities as politically untouchable. And it's not hard to see why so little was done. In fact, Walz took a step further and blamed it on Trump, arguing that ICE's surge in Minneapolis somehow restricted the state from combating fraud. It's as delusional as it can really get. Shirley then expanded on the role of certain people in power playing in allowing these fraud schemes to continue, calling out Ilhan Omar in the process. And we'll play it right after a quick word from today's sponsor, Colote. Now, they actually challenged me to see how exposed my personal information was. So I entered my phone number on the website. I figured it wouldn't find very much, but my threat level came back as high. It even located information like my social security number. The reason is simple. Data brokers make billions collecting and selling our personal information every time we sign up for things like apps or websites or online services. That is exactly why I use Cloaked. It shows you where your data is exposed and removes it. and gives you unlimited burner emails, phone numbers, and usernames. So companies and data brokers end up with useless data. Plus, you get dark web monitoring, a built-in VPN, a password manager, AI-powered spam call filtering, and $1 million in identity theft insurance. Go to cloak.com/red-white-rational, enter your phone number, and run the free security scan. It only takes a few seconds, and you might be surprised by what it finds. If you're ready to take back your privacy, use cloak.com/red-white-rational to get 30% off any plan.
Well, I think profiles encouraged wouldn't be something that would be written about the current members of the Democrat Party for sure. And because, again, you think you would agree that they're just afraid of being labeled that way, and that fear drives them away from even attending a hearing like today?
Yeah, definitely. And it's very sad to see that they put that's their priorities, is to make sure that they're not labeled as a racist or Islamophobic for exposing fraud or for exposing what's happening inside a community. Quite frankly, they use the Somali population to commit the fraud. Ilhan Omar should be disgraced of what she did to the Somali population.
And when you look at people in your generation can't afford a car, can't afford a house, don't see how in the future you'd be able to retire with any kind of dignity, and yet somebody can break into our country illegally, be provided a luxury hotel room in New York, 3 meals a day, maid service once a week, free education, free health care. What goes through your head when you think about that?
Like, how does this happen? We're putting foreigners oftentimes above American citizens, and it's very, very sad to see.
Now, it's important to stick to the facts here because it's easy to slip into sensational claims about an entire community. It's well documented that many Somali-Americans were victims of these fraudsters themselves. For instance, in one Medicaid case tied to the broader Feeding Our Future scheme, hundreds of Somali-Americans had their identities used, quote, without their knowledge to submit claims for doctor appointments along with interpreters and transportation services. We also haven't talked enough about the backlash the broader community faced, although some of its own members were former investigators and whistleblowers who helped the federal government expose these schemes in the first place. Now, none of that excuses what happened, but it does add another layer that figures like Omar or Waltz refuse to acknowledge because they were busy deflecting all blame.
I think what we need to do here, Mr. Chairman, is take this topic very seriously. I think the American people are sick and tired of hearings, honestly. I think they need to see people who are held accountable, that go to jail. And until we do that, I don't know that we have the confidence of people. I feel badly for next generation, honestly. I don't know how they look at it and say, this government's just failing us. And the sense of disenfranchisement with the American government. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around the fact that Democrats care so little about this topic that they don't even show up. They didn't show up at your session either, Senator Johnson, when we talked about this exact topic in your committee. And ultimately, if your elected leaders don't give a crap about how government spends money, it's an indictment on that. And even worse, the media just won't even talk about it. There will be more stories on CNN tonight about the reflecting pond being empty than the fact that you had a hearing today about trillions of dollars of fraud. And that is the problem. The media is complicit. The Democrats are complicit because that's ultimately, you have to think, what keeps them in power.
Okay, that's an important point that rarely gets enough attention. While some mainstream outlets have covered these fraud cases, the amount of coverage has been nowhere close to matching the scale of the evidence that's already been uncovered. Like it or not, a sizable chunk of the country still gets most of its news from those outlets, which means many voters still don't have a clear picture of what's actually been exposed. A lot of that comes down to information bubbles they live in, where certain stories receive nonstop attention while others barely make it to the news, regardless of how big they really are. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, keep thinking.